Hello, I'm Ben and you're watching The PhD Parent. From what I can see, there's little research investigating interventions designed specifically to reduce temper tantrums. I did come across some small n studies, that is, studies in which there is a small sample, for example, only one participant, but because of the small sample sizes involved, you can't take too much away from the results of these studies, and so I'm not going to discuss them. However, two things. First, several psychological interventions have been developed to help kids with behavioural disorders, where a common feature of these disorders is temper tantrums. For example, opposition or defiant disorder. And many studies have shown that these interventions are effective in helping kids with such disorders. Thus, the strategies employed in these interventions could plausibly help reduce temper tantrums if this were the specific concern of a parent. In another video, you can check out the link below, I provide a brief introduction to the types of strategies used in these treatments. Second, there's plenty of advice about how to try and reduce tantrums, and so I'll provide an overview of this advice in the current video. But to be clear, there's no research that I know of which demonstrates in isolation the effectiveness of the strategies I've described in terms of their impact on temper tantrums. So what I've done is bring together advice from reputable professional bodies, for example, the American Academy of Pediatrics, government sources, for example, the Raising Children website, a parenting website supported by the Australian government, and published papers. The advice is separated into two sections, based upon the common observation that, when it comes to temper tantrums, prevention is better than cure. As anyone who's experienced their kid have a tantrum will probably know, once the tantrum gets going, there's not much you can do to stop it. So first up is advice about what to do when a tantrum occurs, followed by advice on how to prevent tantrums. So, what you can try when your kid has a tantrum. First of all, stay calm. Everyone says this one. The rationale is that if you get angry, then things are probably only going to get worse. Of course, staying calm is sometimes easier said than done. Provided it's safe to do so, you can take a time out yourself if that's going to help keep you calm. It can also be useful to better understand what might be driving your own anger. In another video, I outline a few approaches for dealing with parental anger triggered by a parent's tantrums, and you can check out the link below. So second, distract the child. There's some conflicting evidence on this one. Some people suggest you should try to distract your child, whereas others reckon there's no point, as once a tantrum gets going, distraction is likely to be ineffective. But no one suggests that it's going to be a bad thing to do. So next, ignore the tantrum. A common suggestion is to ignore the tantrum, which is based upon the idea that attending to the tantrum may reinforce it. Ignoring doesn't mean leaving the child alone though, unless you need to leave to stay calm. That is, the recommendation is that you still stay with the child to show them that you're there supporting them. The limits to ignoring a tantrum are when the tantrum behaviors are likely to cause harm to the child or others. These types of behaviors should not be ignored. Next, don't give in to demands. Here the suggestion is that you should not give in to your child's demands because, like ignoring the tantrum, giving your child what they want will likely reinforce the tantrum, making tantrums more likely to happen in the future. So now on to acknowledge the child's feelings. The advice I saw typically is that you should acknowledge the child's feelings and then ignore. So for example, if the child is having a tantrum because you didn't buy them a toy or a lolly at the shop, so you might say something like, "You're really upset because you didn't get what you wanted," and then you ignore. Now this one touches on the kinds of stuff you see in strong positive parenting interventions or gentle parenting approaches. In another video I expand upon these types of approaches and you can check out the link down below. So next, remove the child from the situation. The purpose here is simply to give the kid a chance to calm down. The same thing that's recommended for parents if they're having trouble staying calm. Now on to after the tantrum. So the two most common suggestions for how to handle the tantrum once it's over are: first, don't punish the child. Two reasons for this are that, in most cases, tantrums are a normal part of the child's development and reflect the child learning how to manage their own feelings. For more on this, you can check out the video in the link below. And you might run the risk of the child bottling up their feelings, which long-term is not a healthy approach for dealing with emotions. And second, comfort your child. Give the child a hug or whatever, and treat things as if you're starting fresh. So now what you can try to do to prevent tantrums. Starting with identify what internal states make tantrums more likely to happen. So basically ask yourself what goes on inside your child that makes it more likely that they're going to have a tantrum. Now every kid is different, but some common internal states that increase the chances of a kid having a tantrum include tiredness, fatigue, hunger, physical illness, and emotions such as stress, anxiety, frustration, or sadness. So for example, if tiredness is something that makes your child more likely to have a tantrum, then try to ensure that they get a nap, some quiet time, or don't push them too far. For example, if you've been out shopping for a while, consider cutting your shopping trip short if you notice your child is getting a bit ratty. Alternatively, if you notice your child is tired but getting rest is not an option, then you may need to avoid situations that could trigger a tantrum. For example, if you're at the shops and they're tired, avoiding the toy or lolly aisle would be advisable. Unfortunately, this can't always be done, as shops often like to put toys and lollies right where you have to pay, because they're jerks. Next, maintain a routine. By putting in place and maintaining a daily routine, your child will know what to expect, which may reduce feelings of stress and anxiety. Now on to use warnings so your child knows what to expect. Same principle as the previous point, but in this case, it's giving the kid a heads up about what's going to be happening. For example, if you're at the park, then rather than just saying time to go, you can instead say 3 more minutes and then we have to go home. Next, use feeling words. So get in the habit of labeling your child's feelings, talking to them about how others might be feeling, for example, characters in a book or on TV, and encouraging your child to use these words to describe what's going on for them. I think this one is important, and for more on the topic of helping a kid manage emotions, you can check out my video in the link below. So now on to pick your battles. So if you're always saying no to your child, this might lead to them feeling frustrated, and so more likely to have a tantrum. So if your child's request is not really going to be a problem, then consider saying yes. Next, give kids choices. This is a common feature of parenting interventions. The idea is that when given a choice, the child is more likely to feel that they've got control over what goes on for them, which feels good. So for example, you could ask, do you want to wear your red jumper or your blue jumper today? Distraction. If you notice your child might be on the way to a tantrum, then distract them to try and ward it off. For example, change rooms, see if they want to play with a new toy, try different activities, sing a song, whatever it takes. So that's it for advice on how to manage temper tantrums. If there's anything I've gotten wrong, any important research I've overlooked, or if you have any questions, then feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, happy parenting.